Hello there! What's going on, everybody? Today we're going to be talking Star Wars Armada, The Clone Wars, what's coming after Wave 2. So, just a little heads up, what we're going to be talking about today, the stuff that we already know that's coming, but I wanted to speculate a little bit on the ships that might be coming after all the stuff that we know. So, what would be maybe Wave 3, and how much longer until we start getting, slowdown again. So, first off, if you're new here, let me remind you there's a new round of the giveaway going on right now. All you have to do is be a subscriber and leave a comment on this or one of my videos. It's as simple as that. You'll be automatically entered in to win that $25 Amazon gift card. So make sure you do that. Also, if you guys want to support the channel, there's links down in the description below. There's merch down there. There's Patreon, social media links, all of that stuff. Be sure to check all of that out. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into this. Now, what are the things that we already know, right? We've already seen the launch wave, or wave 1 as it's being called right now, which for the Republic is going to be, of course, the squadrons. I'm going to be focusing more on the ships themselves today, and that's going to be, your Acclamator and your Consular cruisers. And then, of course, for the Separatists, it's your Munificent and your hard cell transports. Now, a lot of people thought hard cells was a little bit strange of a choice, but I think it's great because there's not a whole lot of small ships, I think, that they can do for the Separatists, whereas the Republic, I think, has a lot more choices on small ships. So I think they wanted to at least make the starters kind of on kind of even keel, make them kind of similar as far as the layout and how much you're going to get, and then differentiate them a little bit more in the expansions that come. Now, speaking of the expansions that come, we also know what Wave 2 is going to be. This is slated for January 2021 if everything goes well. I think all they really said right now is first quarter 2021. But early reports suggest it could be January. Of course, we could always, it could always be pushed back. So let's see. I'm crossing my fingers for January, but let's plan for February or March just in case, because that wouldn't be unreasonable and that wouldn't be unheard of. So what do we have coming that's also there? So, you can see in here that we're also going to be getting the Providence class, or the Invisible Hand, which presumably will be a large ship. Also the Recusant class light destroyer over there on the left for Separatists. The Republic's getting the Pelta and the Venator. And, honestly, this is good. This rounds out, honestly, these factions fairly well. It gives us not everything, but a lot of what we would expect from these factions. So, I think with just these two waves, you're going to see a lot of stuff on the table that you expect to see. What could be coming after that? And that's really what we want to talk about today. Because I think if they just did, maybe one more wave, they could, maybe get us almost all the way there. But I think the first thing that comes to mind if we're going to talk, because I want to talk about Separatists first, is the Lucra Hulk. You've got to have the Lucra Hulk. There's a couple of different versions of it there. You can have, and it's a very, very easy one to translate to the game because it's got a battle version. It's also got a carrier version, and you can make them, the two versions of this ship very different. I think it has to be a huge ship. Well, I think it ought to be a huge ship, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. They could shrink it down enough to make it like the biggest ever large ship, but I really want to see it as a huge ship, a side-by-side base, some kind of thinking outside of the box, fundamentally, way of supporting this massive of a ship. I mean, granted, they could always just pick a big base and have it kind of in the middle on that center dome, kind of supporting the head with the arms coming around like so. That could totally work. I could see that happening, but I don't think I really want that. I want it to be, I think thematically it would make sense if it had a wider, more rectangular, sideways kind of base to reflect the odd size of the ship, as opposed to it not being a tube in design. It's more of a rectangle, or so I would love that. I would love it if they could do something like that, or maybe they just go crazy here and come up with a circular base. Wouldn't that be something? If it had a round, straight up circular base, that would be something very, very cool. I don't know if they'll do that, but if they did, I think that would be really cool. All right, so in the fashion of big stuff, this one is absolutely must be huge because it's much, much bigger, and that's going to be a subjugator class, or otherwise known as the Malevolence, which I think we've only seen one of these in canon, but it had a class of vessels, so there could have been more. But this was, if you guys have seen, this was that big ion cannon ship that Grievous was on early on in the Clone Wars. This is, I think, one of the most wanted ships. I think this is only number 2, only to the Lucra Hulk. for me as far as what would round out and make the Clone Wars feel complete. I think there's problems with something like this, though, because it would be very, very large, and we know that they had some problems with getting the Superstar Destroyer or the Executor produced. Now, presumably they've probably learned their lesson by now, so I'm hoping that they won't have too much difficulty. Also, this isn't as big as the Executor, so it wouldn't have to be quite that large. They could certainly cut some corners and shrink it down a little bit, but I still think it has to be huge. I think it gives some really cool play opportunities. I also think this could be a good opportunity to give us Dooku. Even though Grievous was on here, I believe we're getting Grievous in the Providence. I think that's kind of what's been insinuated. I think they did say we are going to be getting Grievous in the first 2 waves. And since he does not come in the starter, according to the leaks that we've seen, it looks like he comes... I'm guessing that he's going to come on the Providence, the Invisible Hand, which was his command ship for a long time. Granted, this was his command ship for this arc that it was in, but he was also working for Dooku at the time. And so, then the reason I think you would get Dooku on a ship like this is like, well, where else would you get him? Like, I can't think of another ship that's better, to bring out like the big bad of the Separatists, than this. Or unless you're gonna put a version of Darth Sidious on this one. I mean, that could be something that you end up doing also. I'm not sure if they'll do that, but either way, that would be a fun one. Some more Separatist ships that they could do. This one is the Separatist supply ship. I don't know if they'll really do this one, but thematic, like this might be more of like scraping the bottom of the barrel. Or it may be like, hey, they don't want to do those big ships yet, like those huge ships yet, so they want something else that is also recognizable. These are usually kind of in the background, though. I don't really see this as being combat-heavy ships. It doesn't look like they have much armament, if at all. And I feel like if they wanted to make like a large ship that was a support ship, because these are apparently pretty big. I mean, you might get away with making them medium ships, but I mean, I think they are probably going to be large ships. They're pretty enormous, but they're really used for supply and for and you can load fighters onto them, or you can have them just kind of transporting goods. So it's like, I feel like this would be something like that would be filling the role kind of like a flotilla. We also saw a Diamond class cruiser on episode 2, and if the hard cell transport can make it in, the Diamond class can certainly make it in. I mean, it's canon, it's on screen, although briefly. We don't get to see a whole lot of it, so there may be the concern that it's not recognizable enough to put out so early in the life of the Clone Wars, for fear that maybe your average consumer might not recognize it and therefore won't pick it up. But I think it's still a good choice as far as gameplay and mechanics and theme. It seems to fit with everything, and I think that's a good way to work. As far as flotillas, I think really the best bet is to go with a Separatist Gazanti. They were in the Clone Wars. We saw them painted up kind of like this. They were with the blue and white with the little Separatist logo. They exist. It's a little cheap because it's kind of reusing something, but hey, we're seeing reusings already happen, so I think that's just the safest way to go. Let's go with the Separatist Gazanti. You could even alter the sculpt a little bit because it's more like the Separatist Gazanti like shares a little bit with the Sea Rock, is a little bit sleeker, I think, than the Imperial Gazanti. I think it's just like a slightly different model. All right, so let's talk about the Republic now. All right, so the Republic has the Acclamator, the Consular Cruiser, the Pelta, and the Venator. They've already got 2 small ships in the lineup, which makes me think, hey, there's plenty of room for bigger ships, but there's not that many more. Most of the ships that I could come up with that I think are likely to show up are going to be small. Most of them are. The stealth ship, which, I believe... I don't know if it's confirmed if this was the same exact ship to go on to become the Carry-On Spike from the Tarkin book or not. This is certainly one that could pull double duty for the Empire if they would like to. And I'd love to see that. But the stealth ship was early on in the Clone Wars. Anakin. This would be a good one, I think, to put Anakin in the game. I don't know. Again, I don't know if he's going to come in the first 2 waves or not. But if they don't, this would be a great ship to put him in, because he took the lead on this mission and pulled some clever cloaking tactics. And I love the idea of putting a stealth ship in Armada, and I love like the whole concept of like, hey, how could we do cloaking in Armada? And I could do an maybe that's a subject for a whole nother video, because I could really get off topic trying to come up with different ways to do cloaking. Although, let's just be sure, I think they already have a mechanic in place for it. It's the same way that people come out of hyperspace, right? So you'd probably say, hey, we know it was over here, so it comes out within range 1 of its current location, so you'll be able to like pick where it goes. I think that's kind of how you would do cloaking. Okay, so I like the idea of the stealth ship. I think you also have to throw the CR-90 in there, because, hey, look, the Republic had access to these. These were used during the Clone Wars. I don't think this one needs to be up right away. I'm not sure if they'll do that, just because it's. I mean, but then again, they may, because they've already got the sculpt done. It would just be a repaint and a repackaging, and so that would be a real easy one for them to crank out. Next up, I think the number one most wanted for me is the Architans, and I say most wanted out of the things that I would say are a sure thing. Like, they're definitely going to do the Architans. The Architans is, out of the ships that have been spoiled already for the Republic, this is the only one that's crucial that hasn't shown up yet. I think everything else is optional. I really want to see the stealth ship too, but it may not be as recognizable. But this is incredibly recognizable. This is very, very highly recognizable for the Clone Wars. More so recognizable in the Clone Wars than it was for the Empire, and the Empire got them. I will say this, pre-order yours now, because if they're anything like the Imperial Architans, they'll go really, really quick, and you won't be able to get even one, if not, I don't know if they're going to if they'll play similarly to how they do for the Empire, but I like to swarm these guys. I like to run 5 of them at least, and if they're like that for the Republic, man, and maybe they got some new tricks too. That sounds really good to me. Sounds really good to me. I'll probably get 5 for the Republic. Next up, we're going to go with the one big ship that's going to be on this list, and that's the Mandator. I think I have a Mandator 1 here, but it would be the huge ship that the Republic could potentially have. Now, we didn't actually see this on screen, but the Mandator line of ships is canon. We did see the Mandator 4 in The Last Jedi, and Mandators have been referenced in certain other canon books, I believe. So it's something that exists, and I'm not a big history buff on this, but I believe these were actually commissioned before the Clone Wars ever started. Like, not during the Old Republic, but before the Republic, before pre-Episode 1, because the Republic had a navy before clones were commissioned. So this would be like something along those lines. And so I think it's an opportunity for them to do a huge ship for the Republic, and also another expansion for the Republic, because I feel like they're going to run out of Republic ships to do long before they run out of Separatist ships to do. There's more, because the Separatists had so many different like guilds and stuff that came together, and they each kind of brought some of their own stuff. But at the same time, like, the Republic kind of really just used peltas, and most of the space battles was like 85% peltas, some Architans. I'm sorry, Venators. Did I say peltas? I meant to say Venators. Pelt is in the same artwork as Venators, so I think it's stored in the same like memory box in my brain. So yes, it's 85% Venators, some Peltas, usually for support, usually. Some Architans, definitely Acclimators, but not Acclimators in like a shooty role. Usually Acclimators landing when it's safe. So that's kind of what you tend to see. But so we're just going to run out of stuff that's recognizable. That's like, without having to pull from Legends too. So I feel like the Mandator is, if they can get the clearance to give us a good sculpt on it. There's actually a couple different versions of Mandator that they might be able to do. There's Mandator 1 and 2 and 3. They could, and even the Bellator, although I think that one stretches into Imperial timelines. But still, the Mandator line is one that I'd love to see happen, especially if they can get the go-ahead to start making huge ships, and make lots of huge ships. I just love that. I'd love for huge ships to happen all over the place. Now, as for one more I want to do is for a flotilla. This one is a bit of a stretch, and you might not agree with me, or maybe you do. And this is the CSS-1 Corellian Star Shuttle. This is one that we've certainly seen a lot. We see a lot of it's in a lot of different episodes of the Clone Wars. I think it's not that uncommon to see this. I think it was in the films too. So this particular type of shuttle is just a kind of a routine, regular kind of supply shuttle. I think it's even just a civilian under the Republic. The reason I say that this would work is because the GR-75 works. Very similar capacity, right? Also, this is more recognizable. Like, this particular ship was in so many episodes. Like, this model was seen so often. I feel like it will have some recognizability, and that's an important factor whether something actually gets made, is if customers are going to recognize it and then buy it. Like, it's part of like the business decision that goes into making all of these things. Hey, this is a really, really popular thing from Legends. Oh, but people aren't going to recognize it. But maybe the artwork hasn't been done on it. Like, I feel like somebody at FFG was probably like risky about making the Starhawk for Armada because it was a design that nobody had seen before. Of course, it was popular enough with the fans to say absolutely heck yeah. But it's still one of those things where there's got to be some risk involved in, like, are people going to like the way it looks? Are people going to recognize it? And so with going with something that's not as recognizable, I think they have a harder time with. But those are my some thoughts I have on what might be in Wave 3. I think there's a lot more future prediction type Armada videos we can talk about in the future. Like, also because at a certain point, they're going to have to start making Rebel and Imperial ships again too, right? So I think there's a lot of really cool things for us to talk about, and we'll talk about those in the future. If you guys like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up and let me know what you think down in the comments section. Big thanks to my patrons, big thanks to my viewers, big thanks to all you guys hanging out with me today. Thank you so much, and as always, have a great day.